Daja Hao. It's my first time in China, so very little Mandarin. It's wonderful to be here with all of you in Shanghai. It's amazing for me to come out here and see this many folks in a room to think DoubleClick with us. We're very excited. We're here for two reasons in my mind. The first is to connect with all of you, and we want to encourage all of you to connect with each other. As an industry, things are moving very quickly, and there's a lot of power in sharing knowledge, and we're excited to have everybody together today to do just that. The second theme is this idea of accelerating. We hope by sharing with you guys today some of the products that are coming out, we hope to accelerate your knowledge of the industry and the opportunities that you're facing. Those two themes also tie to the products that we'll talk about. In particular, on the buy side, it's been a very, very big effort at Google for the last couple of years to better connect our products. And we hope that by doing that, we're going to help you guys accelerate and grow your businesses. So those are two themes. All right, so a bit about me. Very handsome man, as Scott said. I'm not going to argue with that. This is a better picture. This is me at my wedding last year, looking better than the one before. My name is Bruce Falck. I work on platform strategy, so I work across the buy and the sell side platforms at Google. I've been at Google for about 8 years. I've worked on ads products my entire time at Google, but I've worked on the display business in particular for the last 5 years. In those 5 years, I've spent a bit of time running Google's display network in North America. I did that for a couple of years. I was involved with the acquisition and the integration of Invite Media. So that was my first foray into DSPs and real-time bidding a couple of years ago. And more recently, I've worked with the other DoubleClick products. So a little bit with Dart Search, a lot with DoubleClick for Advertisers, which is now called DoubleClick Campaign Manager, and of course the new version of Invite, which is DoubleClick Bid Manager. So for me, it's a great honor to be here talking with you guys about display and learning a bit about the tremendous market opportunity here in China. So I thought I'd start with some numbers. These are probably numbers that you guys know better than me, but these are numbers that I found very, very exciting when I got here, and even surprising. I've only been here a couple of days, but I've learned a great deal in a short space of time. The first number that I wanted to share is this gigantic number of 32 billion renminbi, which is the size of the display market in China, which is just a phenomenal opportunity. The second number, which I find very, very staggering, even coming from the US, is that there are 591 million internet users in China. So that's roughly twice the US population is the size of the internet population in China, and that to me is pretty mind-blowing. I'm very excited about the video space, and was really pleased to learn that video is already a 8.5 billion renminbi business here in China. I was amazed to find out that 49.5% of Chinese internet users have transacted in e-commerce. So not only is it a huge internet population, but we have lots of e-commerce activity already, and that's always exciting. And then it's the number 2 display market in the world. So 3 days into Shanghai, these numbers have got me very excited about the opportunity that all of you guys are facing. So I thought I would talk a little bit about some trends that we've been observing in the US and globally, because I think they'll be interesting to understand as sort of a precursor to talking a bit more about our products. Two of these trends I would describe as consumer trends. These are changes in the way consumers are behaving that are going to directly impact how we as marketers interact with, reach out to those consumers. And two of the trends are technological disruptions that are changing the way that all of us will do business, the way big agencies do business, the way big advertisers do business, the way publishers do business. And it's very central to how we're thinking about DoubleClick and its evolution. So let's jump into those 4 trends. So the first consumer trend is this idea that a marketer and the way a marketer gets a brand message to a consumer has changed a lot in the last several years. What we're trying to illustrate here on the slide is that there was a point in time when a family would gather around a television at night. They would watch a handful of television shows, and as a brand advertiser, if you wanted to reach that family, you would advertise on those television shows. So there was a very clear, well-defined, well-understood path for a brand marketer to get a message to a consumer. What we're showing in the other graphic is something quite different. We're showing a family, in this case, all gathered around a laptop. We now are living in a world where there are many, many more choices in terms of content. This idea of everybody watching a single TV show, I think, is disappearing quite quickly. There are many more devices. Families might sit around and be multitasking. You might be watching several shows at the same time. A lot of time, these shows are on the internet. So in theory, all of us can be watching a different show at the same time. I think that fundamentally changes how a brand marketer thinks about getting a message out. And brand experiences have changed along with that. So that's sort of the first question that we'll pose as a result of the trend is, how do you message in this day and age, in this very hyper-distracted environment that we're now operating in? The second trend is not just mobile, but it is this idea that information is coming at us at all points in time, at all parts of the day, right? This is the notion that I might wake up and switch on the television. I then might take a bus to work and read the news on my cell phone. Then I get to work and I log on to my work computer. Maybe I take a break at lunch and I read something on my iPad or Android device. Later that day, I get home, I might watch more television. I might decide to read on my iPad. I might go to bed later that night and use my telephone to do some research, right? So the issue here is that we used to have a pretty well-defined path to understand a consumer, understand how a consumer is interacting with media, and understand that consumer's path through a purchase funnel. And I'd suggest that that's changing very dramatically. I think about waking up in the morning next to my wife in bed, and a lot of times she's on her cell phone. And I say to her, "What are you doing on your cell phone?" And she says, "I'm shopping, of course." And so this idea that the purchase funnel is very dramatically changed is super important for us to understand. So those are the two sort of big consumer trends. And we have to think about how to interact with these consumers in a way that is logical and sensible and not disruptive to them. The next trend is my big passion, which is real-time bidding and programmatic buying. You in this room are all very familiar with that. Hopefully by the end of today, you will know even more, and you'll be teaching us about this trend and how things are changing. We've seen very disruptive change over the last couple of years. We've seen very, very rapid growth. The notion that you can now think about as a marketer buying an impression in real time, applying data to that impression, and then dynamically messaging that impression is actually a fairly new concept. It's really just 3 to 4 years old in terms of mass adoption. The notion here is that an advertiser should get a better return on investment by very accurately targeting and messaging a user. A publisher should get better RPMs as a result of making that connection so accurately. And ideally, the user is going to have a better experience because they're getting more personalized, better targeted ads. And the question this poses for us at Google is how do we think about building algorithms to help marketers make better decisions? How do we build algorithms to help publishers better monetize their inventory? It's a tremendous and exciting opportunity, and one that I think Google is very well suited to play at because of our history in search and our history with auction-based media transacting, essentially. The last trend I will touch on is this notion that as real-time bidding has taken off, become popular, gone somewhat mainstream, there's been sort of an explosion almost of new companies that allow us to transact in this manner. And it's very, very exciting on the one hand, right? It's great that so many smart companies are innovating. It's great that there's lots of competition in the market. This is just a slide which you guys are probably familiar with, the Chinese market. It's something that we've seen all over the globe. So really exciting on the one hand, but can, on the other hand, cause friction. It can make things too complicated. It can make it more difficult to buy. It can be confusing to advertisers and to publishers. So the question that this raises for us is just this notion of simplicity. How do we make it easier, more intuitive? How do we get the technology out of the way and allow marketers to do what they're really looking to do and publishers to do what they're looking to do. This, of course, creates a huge amount of opportunity, I think, for everybody in the room. We're aware and excited about how these technological changes, how these consumer behavioral changes are really disrupting the way we all do business, and that's very, very exciting for us. Again, the 4 questions this raises in our mind are, how do you influence customers in a world where there are so many media outlets, where there's so much information? How do you cut through the clutter? How do we understand how to interact with customers who are so busy? How to intersect with their lives in a way that is valuable and makes sense? And how do we make smart decisions about what to say to them? How do we do better decisioning now that we have this data and this opportunity? And lastly, and most importantly in my mind, how do we simplify? How do we make it easier for the publishers and the advertisers to connect? So that's essentially what we've tried to address with DoubleClick Digital Marketing. This infographic is centered around the user for a reason. We believe that the user is the center of everything. Around the user, we illustrate this idea that you should be able to access that user through lots of different channels, whether I'm watching a video, whether I'm on social media, whether I'm searching, whether I'm browsing and reading on the internet. There should be a unified way to access this user. There should be a simple and singular platform that allows access of this user. For various reasons, I might want to buy access to that user on a reservation basis if it's time sensitive. I might want to access that user via an auction model if that makes more sense, if real-time bidding makes more sense. And then, of course, critically, as a big marketer, I want to understand where my money went. I want to understand what channels and devices are driving what kinds of outcomes. And I want to understand how to allocate my budget on that basis. It's a simple notion, but whenever I'm out talking to CMOs, I have consistently found that the biggest headache, and it's sort of a running joke because it's been the case for about 50 years, the biggest headache is which of my media dollars are working, and how do I do more of that? And as I illustrated a couple slides ago, there is a big proliferation of platforms and opportunities that's causing confusion. So very, very central to our strategy, very central to our vision, is this notion of a unified platform, a singular view of the end user, a report that describes to me everything that I did in terms of interacting with that user, and ideally, attribution modeling and attribution tools that give me as a marketer insights into what is working so I can do more of that. That's essentially the core strategy for us on the buy side. We acquired DoubleClick 5 or 6 years ago, and we have spent the last 5 or 6 years assembling components. Some of those components, like Invite Media, were acquisitions, and some of them are just rebuilt versions of things like DoubleClick for advertisers and DoubleClick, the search platform, essentially so that we can really, really tightly integrate. Now, why does this matter? What do we think the value this delivers to marketers is? There's really sort of 3 core value propositions. They're simple yet powerful. The first is this idea of efficiency. And this gets back to reporting. If I'm using multiple tools to buy media, then I'm getting multiple reports. When I get multiple reports, I have to spend a lot of time and effort to pull those reports into something I can make sense of. I have to sort of manually integrate those reports. That's just a huge inefficiency. And we'll talk through a case study in a minute as to sort of the progress we're making there. The second is performance. At the end of the day, we are custodians of a customer's budget, or for an advertiser directly, they're custodians of their own budget. They're looking to make an investment. They're looking to get a return on that investment. We believe, and we've got good evidence already, that more tightly integrating these platforms, and in particular DoubleClick Bid Manager, our display buying auction platform, with DoubleClick Search, our search buying platform, as we've more tightly integrated those and we've found use cases where those 2 platforms can actually interact, we've seen much, much better performance. And we're very, very excited about that. We have years of innovation ahead there, but there's good early evidence that an integrated platform delivers better performance. We're excited about that. The third I touched on a minute ago when I talked about attribution. It's this notion of insights. It's this notion of better decisions. That unified view of the end user is going to give you insights into what's working. It's going to allow you to do more of what works and less of what doesn't. It's going to allow you to understand and learn about your end customer. And it's going to be a platform that provides the intelligence to help you figure out how to make those investments and drive better and better returns on your advertising investment. The other thing I'll touch on really quickly with the slide of logos is that DoubleClick's been around for 15 years. As I mentioned, Google's had DoubleClick for about the last 5 or 6 years. We're very proud of the fact that we're a global platform, that we have large advertisers and large agencies and large publishers all over the world working with this platform. Ultimately, in this day and age, big brands and big agencies are operating in a global fashion. And so the ability for us to bring that footprint for them has been very valuable. We've obviously gained a huge amount of learnings as we've built the platform, as the platform has evolved, and as we've seen new use cases like real-time bidding emerge in the last few years. And we're excited because we think we can bring lots of that knowledge inherent in the platform to your market. And we hope that that'll have a nice business benefit for you as you adopt the platform. I wanted to talk about a case study really quickly. This one is with a large agency called Mindshare, which is part of the WPP holding company. Mindshare has about 6,000 employees in about 67 countries. They came to us last year with a challenge. It was a large retail customer in the holiday season, and this retail customer was looking to do what most marketers wanted to do. They wanted to drive more efficiency out of their budget. They wanted to drive better return on spend. And of course, they wanted to gain insights to inform what they did going forward. So we worked with the agency and with the advertiser, and they're actually a platform agnostic agency, so they don't always use our systems, but in this case, they elected to use 3 key products. DoubleClick for advertisers, because they were going to run reservation display campaigns. That was part of their brand building exercise. They were going to supplement that with auction-bought display, so they used DoubleClick Bid Manager. And of course, like most performance-oriented advertisers, they wanted to run search campaigns, and they wanted to run those search campaigns on not just Google inventory, but across all search inventory. So that was essentially the setup that we came to. So I'd love to share just a little bit about the results. The first, which in particular we find matters hugely for agencies, as they continue to scale and as they continue to be under margin pressure, was that they actually gained a 70% time saving by trafficking these campaigns through a single platform. And in particular, most of that time saving came from eliminating all of the manual work that would have to happen to build reports from using different systems. So that was the first one, big efficiencies, big time savings. Ultimately, that's an agency value. The advertiser, of course, cares about return on investment. So by using an integrated version of DoubleClick Bid Manager and using DoubleClick Search, this customer was actually able to build remarketing lists based on search activity and then leverage those remarketing lists across all ad exchanges in real-time bidding through DoubleClick Bid Manager, our DSP. And that, in fact, drove a 25% improvement on their key metric, which in this case is return on ad spend, which is an ROI metric that is quite popular. And then last but not least, they gained some really important insights. In this case, because of the product combination, because of the mix of media, they actually found that they were getting 2x more last touch conversions from display than they were getting from search. And that's something that they were able to figure out, again, by having this unified system and this unified report. One last point I'll touch on here real quickly is this idea of brand safety. Because they used DoubleClick for advertisers, they were actually able to use our verification tool. And even though they're a performance-driven advertiser, as a big retail brand, they want to make sure that their ads are landing in safe places. And so they used our verification tool, which again is integrated into the suite, to help make sure that they could reach their brand safety objectives, which we're really excited about. All right, so that's it for the platform and a little bit of a case study. I thought I'd end with one last trend, an emerging trend. I decided to use this picture of the Shanghai Tower because I'm very excited about this building because I'm staying in a hotel right across the road from the building, so I wake up every morning and I stare out my window. I'm on the 68th floor, and so this building is, 40, 50, 60 floors above me. It's soon to be the second tallest building in China. Tallest building in China, second tallest building in the world. It has nothing to do with RTB, but I just thought it was a cool graphic. And I thought it was as good a way as I could think of to introduce this last emerging trend. I think we mentioned earlier the notion, Neil Mohan, when he did his introduction via the video, that programmatic is seen as remnant sometimes. Programmatic is seen as performance-focused sometimes. We're actually seeing the most sophisticated advertisers in the US start to think about how they can use programmatic to drive their businesses. And there's 4 use cases. I would say 2 of them are pretty real and they're happening already, and 2 of them are more like predictions. We think they're going to happen. So let's go through these 4 cases. The first is a very big marketer, Kellogg's, is actually using RTB and using exchange-traded media as a way for it to deliver lots and lots of what they call tonnage, lots and lots of reach. Now, being a big brand advertiser, they're also going to buy portals, they're also going to buy homepages, they're also going to run lots of video ads, they're going to do television commercials and so on and so forth. But they've decided recently that bidding in real time is a way for them to be much, much smarter about how they extend that reach. And my favorite quote from the CMO of Kellogg's is that he believes now that he's driving a buying platform and that he's sitting on top of algorithms, he's able to tell a publisher what is premium as opposed to being told what is premium. And this is powerful for both the publisher and for Kellogg's, because Kellogg's is able to apply data to decide and understand what works and thereby do more of that. So that's the first use case. The second use case is a bit more nascent, but American Express, obviously a big advertiser, came to us a while ago and said, look, we want to do programmatic, but we don't know that we want to just buy on the open exchange. And we're concerned because we have very good relationships with our publishers, but we want the benefit of real-time decisioning. We want to be able to apply data. We don't want to have to pre-buy inventory and lock ourselves in. So essentially what they've done is they've built a private exchange. They put up some budget. They sat down with 10 or 20 of their top publishers, and they essentially did pre-buy the inventory, but they pre-bought the inventory through the exchange, or essentially they bought the inventory and then traded it on the exchange. Now, why do you need to trade on an exchange for inventory that you've already bought? Again, it comes down to real-time decisioning. So the ability to decision in real time, even on pre-bought inventory, is something that they thought was very powerful. We're seeing a lot of other big brand advertisers jump into this. The next one is a little bit further out and a bit more abstract. But simply put, the vast majority of display dollars are still run through reservations. Premium publishers, homepage takeovers, customized packaging, we think will continue to exist, will be very, very important. But there's an opportunity for these reservations, which have a very antiquated workflow, to start to capitalize on the efficiencies of programmatic and the efficiencies of the programmatic workflow. So our vision is that from a business transaction point of view, not much will change. A deal will be struck, high CPMs will be paid, and it would be just like a standard reservation. The difference would be that reservation would flow programmatically. And that will cause, we think, a lot more brand dollars to come online by just making it easier to buy. And so we're excited about that. There'll be more to come in the next year. We're doing some product work around that idea. The last, which is pretty elusive, is this idea of the click for brand. We all know that performance marketers use clicks and click-through rates and CPCs as a way to understand performance, as a proxy for performance. And it's very, very powerful. This is essentially how Google's search business is driven. But we don't have the same thing for brand. We have this notion of GRPs, we have this notion of reach, but ultimately brand advertisers do care about what's working, and we believe that if we can develop something like a click for brand, it's a simple term, it's an oversimple term, but we believe if we can develop something, this will allow brand dollars to start to trade programmatically, and it'll unleash a huge amount of digital budget, offline budget into the digital space. So those are sort of 4 use cases that we've seen. Just touching on the last one for a few minutes, measurement and in particular measurement for brand advertisers. Wanted to just share with you a little bit in terms of how we're thinking about tackling this challenge, right? It's a very difficult challenge. We have to we have to invent things, but we think there's really three things that matter to a brand advertiser. Again, for performance advertisers, when I'm buying clicks, I don't worry too much if my ad is seen or not seen. I worry about whether it's clicked. But if I'm a brand advertiser and I'm trying to deliver a message, if I'm trying to reach that family that's very distracted, I want to be very, very sure the ad is actually seen. So the first piece of product development work we're doing is around making sure ads are seen, allowing advertisers to pay not just on a CPM basis, but pay CPMs for ads that were actually seen, or pay CPMs or premium CPM for ads that are guaranteed seen, essentially. And we'll touch on that in a second. I'll give you a quick explanation of how that's going to work. The second is, what did they think, right? So if I've now seen an ad, how did it change my thinking? That's the idea behind brand advertising. I'm looking to influence a consumer's thinking. We think that we should be able to track that. We should be able to understand how seeing an exposure to an ad changes your thinking. It might show up in search behavior, it might show up in browsing behavior. We might be able to survey and better understand how a consumer was influenced by seeing an ad. So that's the second area we're working on. And last but not least is this notion that ultimately I do, even as a brand advertiser, care about what a consumer does as a result of having seen this ad. This is the notion that if I'm a luxury car brand like BMW, I make these really, really cool ads. Sometimes I even make films and I release them online. And they're very sort of aspirational and everything else, but I'm making those ads because I want to sell a BMW one day. That's the reason for that ad. So we think that ultimately we want to be able to track end-to-end the impression that is made by seeing that BMW ad to the number of BMWs that were transacted as a result of seeing that ad. So that's the third area that we're working on. And we'll be talking a little bit more today in our breakout sessions on these. Let me try to explain a piece of technology we call ActiveView that was pretty recently released on our display network, the GDN. I'm not able to give an interactive demo, but here's notionally how it works. I've got a web page over here. We have decided that an ad would be defined as having been seen if it is on screen for 1 second, and if the entire ad is exposed for at least that 1 second. Now, as an advertiser, I'm going to pay for both ads, but I'm going to understand what portion of the ads that I paid for were actually seen. As a publisher, this is an exciting opportunity because if you can deliver inventory to brand advertisers and validate that inventory was actually seen, we think brand advertisers will value that and potentially pay more. So what we're essentially showing here is on the top right-hand side of the screen, an ad that is fully exposed. It has a green box around it that shows A. And then we have an ad on the bottom right of the screen, which has a red box around it that says B. The ads will not actually look like this. This graphic simply illustrates that if a page were rendered this way, we would deem ad A to be seen because it was on screen for more than a second, and we would deem ad B to not have been seen because it's not fully exposed. The ad is cut off halfway through. So this is the product we're rolling out, and we can tell you guys more about. We think this, again, is going to open up brand budgets and make it more interesting for brand buyers to shift dollars online, which, of course, is going to be a big driver of digital in the years to come. All right, I thought I'd end with an exciting announcement. As you guys may know, our Invite Media platform now, DoubleClick Bid Manager, is probably the biggest DSP on earth. It probably has access to the most inventory. It talks to all of the big relevant exchanges. We're still rolling out in some countries, but that's notionally what we're looking to do. We have had one problem with Facebook. Facebook has a very large exchange. It's called FBX, or the Facebook Exchange, and until recently, we were not able to access Facebook inventory. So just last Friday, we announced via the blog post that I've got on this slide that DoubleClick Bid Manager will now have access to the Facebook Exchange. So we're excited to share that news with you. No cheering? we might be more excited than you because it was a lot of work to get here. All right, I will end now and just tell you real briefly what else you're going to be hearing about today in the breakout sessions. I've talked quite a bit about brand. We're going to be talking about some interesting new formats and engagement ads. I've talked a lot about programmatic. We're going to have a session in the breakout session on the buy side around how to get the most out of programmatic. Mobile is a big theme, obviously. Mobile will be talked about throughout. Mobile is a very, very big push for us next year. On our exchange, we're seeing most of our impression growth coming from mobile. The notion we have there is you have to adapt or you're going to die, and mobile first and everything. So we'll talk a lot about that. And then I've touched on measurement, but we'll go a little bit deeper on measurement and explain some of our measurement tools. We'll explain a bit about how to use data, and we're excited to have those sessions with you later today. And that is it for me. Thank you very much. Xie xie.